This consulting decision, which informs the desire of all Arab and Islamic countries to coordinate at the highest level in order to maintain stability and prosperity of its people and security. In this meeting, we have agreed to condemn the egregious attacks of Iran against Saudi Arabia and GCC countries and a number of Arab and Islamic countries, and the determination of the Iranian regime to destabilize the region in breach of international laws and threatening the international peace and security. We have warned over and over again of such escalatory measures to spare the region such circumstances and to resort to peaceful approaches. However, Iran's insistence on violating good neighborhood principles, and therefore we have stressed the need for Iran to stop its aggressions and to condemn Iran's attempt to escape blame for such attacks and its human and physical losses. Iran has preemptively planned for the attacks that we have witnessed today, and this is an extension of a established history of supporting militias and supporting its proxies to destabilize the region. Aggression against neighboring countries is a violation of conventions and laws and against the principles of the Islamic faith, and this doesn't serve nor contribute to the Islamic unity, but rather undermines the same. The countries today have stressed that Iran needs to review its decisions. This continued attacks against our countries would serve it no good, but rather would have adverse implications that would cost Iran high political price and would increase its isolation. And we have called for an unprecedented consolidation, 136 countries, members of the United Nations, and to stress the United Nations resolution that asks Iran to stop its aggressions immediately against neighboring countries. We have also stressed that the need to implement the resolution immediately and to cease and desist from supporting its proxies in the region. And we have discussed the importance of protecting shipping and waterways, and we have condemned Iran's attack on against shipping in the region and closing the Strait of Hormuz and the implications on international trade, and that attacks on shipping is a threat to international trade, and this requires a collective action to ensure security of the Strait of Hormuz. The attacks on sources of energy that would that impacts the international economy and the developing countries and the most needed countries. Collaboration and intense coordination between our nations will continue in light of the developments in order to frame joint stances and to take necessary actions to protect the stability and security of our nations, and calling for a broad regional and international action. Thank you. How do you comment on Iran's political discourse, especially in light of the attack against Riyadh during your meeting with ballistic missiles? Answer: thank you for the question. Actually, our comment is that it's clear that the Iranians didn't understand the message, and they don't want to understand the message. They continue to attack their neighbors, their brothers, and they are while they calling for Islamic solidarity. How do they expect Islamic solidarity and support while they attack Islamic countries? They hamper their interests. They target their civilians. How could they call for diplomatic solutions while they attack nations that have no relationship to the ongoing conflict? All of this is an indication that Iran has always regarded its neighbors not based on principles of brotherhood, nor with a sincere desire to coexist and to develop, but rather always looked at them with hostility and with the perception that whenever needed, they would escalate and target such nations in order to exert pressure on international community. The primary message is that if Iran believes that the Gulf states are incapable of resilience nor respond, their calculations would prove wrong.
The political responses are available, and non-political responses are equally available on the table. Iran needs to review its intentions if they are sincere in extending an arm of friendship and brotherhood. First of all, you need to uphold principles of Islam, which wouldn't allow a true Muslim to attack their neighbors, especially Muslim neighbors, and particularly civilians, and the interests of Muslim nations. It seems that Iran didn't consider all these considerations, and all this comes at a price. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nick Robertson from CNN. You didn't choose this war, yet you are bearing the brunt of it. This is a difficult balance. Can you talk to us about that balance of how you're threading without being drawn in, but at the same time, the question has to be, you've seen an escalation of Iran's attacks over the capital this evening, a very clear message, it would seem, to your gathering of foreign ministers here. The bottom line is, are you going to join the fight? When are you going to join the fight? You've just mentioned that there are political solutions and other solutions. So I think Iran's message today was quite clear, as you mentioned. The targeting of Riyadh, while a number of diplomats are meeting, I cannot see as coincidental. And I think that's the clearest signal of how Iran feels about diplomacy. It doesn't believe in talking to its neighbors. It tries to pressure its neighbors. And what I can say categorically, that's not going to work. The kingdom is not going to succumb to pressure. And on the contrary, this pressure will backfire politically, will backfire, I believe, morally, and certainly, as we have stated quite clearly, we have reserved our right to take military actions if deemed necessary, and if the time comes, the leadership of the kingdom will take the necessary. We will not shy away from protecting our country and our economic resources. You know, the main point here is that the Iranians continue to target economic resources and continue to attack the livelihoods of ordinary Saudis. You know, when I see an attack today, two refineries in Riyadh were attacked. What's the purpose of that? What possible military purpose can you have for attacking a refinery in a non-combatant? So the Iranians will have to understand that this has consequences. Iranian officials keep saying that their attacks against GCC countries are directed at American military bases. However, reality says, contrary to that. How do you raise such contradictory statements by the Iranian officials towards GCC countries? My second question, in terms of diplomacy, would Saudi Arabia go any further? Would Saudi Arabia approach or resort to Security Council or other organizations? Answer: such contradiction is nothing new. This is the historic challenge in the relationship with such a regime in Iran. When in the past, when we would talk to them about supporting armed groups, they would deny it. To when they talk to them about their support to the Houthis in Yemen, they would deny it. To when we talk to them about some actions in the kingdom, they deny it. So they are used to committing a crime and then denying it. This, I believe, the entire world can see the lie that there is no denying the ballistic missiles that target civilian properties, and we need to remember that striking civilian targets is not an escalatory step. It was there from the very first few days, they have targeted oil production facilities, and due thanks to our air defenses, we have stopped them. However, they have repeatedly targeted civilian targets in Qatar, in the UAE, in Bahrain, and in Kuwait, and in other countries as well. This feeble excuse of the US assets in the region and presence shouldn't be convincing to anyone who sees the truth of the matter, and the countries which I have just named, especially the kingdom, they have sent a clear message to Iran that these nations wouldn't allow their territories to launch any attacks and any operations would be limited to self-defense, and this is based on previously existing relationships that has got nothing to do with the ongoing conflict, and the presence of the United States in the region are related to fighting ISIS. So all these pretexts is an attempt of the Iranian regime's attempt to cover their strategic intention. They are trying to exercise a policy of blackmail to their political ends. They need to understand that neither the kingdom nor the GCC countries would respond to a blackmail, and escalation would be met with escalation.